Conference Committee report on House File 2749. Senator Cohen.
Madam President, members, this is the supplemental finance bill for this year's session. Obviously, it's a significant compendium of the work done by all the finance divisions during the course of this year's session. Let me just suggest to members that relative to where we were when we left the Senate floor, obviously the House had a significantly lower number than we did. So in our work with the House, we come back from conference with a general fund of $157 million and transfers of $167 million. I will suggest to members that the House, although with a much lower general fund target coming into conference, used significantly greater transfers and reserves than the Senate did. And the Senate did adopt some of that transfer that the House had. So we end up with a general fund bill, as I mentioned, of $157 million, but with the transfers, a total spend of $325 million, approximately, I think, 67% of where we were when we left the floor. Let me also offer just a couple of comments of where we are in terms of the budget. Right now, with the passage of the Senate tax bill, we have a budgetary balance for 16-17 of $458 million. However, we have a budgetary balance right now for 18-19, assuming this bill passes, of $866 million. I mention that, members, because if in fact we pass a bonding bill and utilize general fund dollars in the aggregate of the bill, obviously that diminishes our budgetary balance. However, with our reserves, with our cash flow account, we still should have, for the 18-19 biennium, well over $2 billion. So obviously this Senate has been a Senate that has engaged in
just a minute, Senator Cohen. Can we please keep the noise level down? For so few people on the floor, you're making an awful lot of noise. Senator Cohen.
Thank you, Madam President. So we end up with as I mentioned, with reserves and cash flow account of over $2 billion, well over $2 billion for the 18-19 biennium. So clearly this Senate has done a great job in affecting structural balance for the state of Minnesota. Let me just offer some thoughts relative to what this bill has in it. And members, and I know that Senator Skoye is listening raptly to my description of the bill, because I'm very, very proud that I think, Senator Skoye, if I'm not mistaken, the first time during my chairmanship of the Senate Finance Committee, I have a bill that is a tax bill. We have 4 tax provisions in this bill. The veterans tax exemption for retirement income is the major piece. The angel investor credit, the modular home exemption, and then actually a serious matter, the stillbirth birth exemption, which parallels the federal tax exemption in the case of a stillborn birth. But Sarah Skoye and I have talked about this for a number of years, and the fact that I am extremely jealous of the fact that every year I look at the omnibus tax bill and I see it's an appropriations bill. And Senator Skoye just tells me that he has no choice. This year, I have a tax bill. And in fact, if you take a look at the overall spend in my bill, a significant part, both for 16-17 as well as 18-19, are those tax provisions. And I will offer a couple of comments about 2 of them, but I do want to make clear to members that you're voting not only for some very needed spending for the state of Minnesota, but you're voting for some significant tax cuts. So members, today you have it both ways. You vote for a tax bill with tax cuts, and you vote for the appropriations bill with tax cuts. Aside from what might be a touch of facetiousness, let me tell you why the major tax cut is in this bill. What was contained within the Senate bill was the governor's pre-K program. That comes back out of conference, but the House wanted to do something in return. And what is contained in return is that significant elimination of income taxes, state income taxes, on veterans' retirement income. So I would suggest to members, if you're going back and forth about how you might vote for the bill, you vote no on this bill, you're voting against the veterans exemption. It's something the House wanted to do. It's something, Senator Scoy, that you gave consideration to doing, but it's contained within this bill. Let me also reflect on some of the other features. And obviously, this bill, like any supplemental finance bill, is a combination, as I mentioned at the outset, of the work that the chairs have done. So it's reflected not only in terms of the conferees who are on the conference committee, but the additional finance chairs, coupled with something that's fairly unique, and that is the equity article that we passed off the floor. That was the work of primarily Senators Champion and Hayden, and they served as adjunct members of the conference committee. I mentioned the pre-K program. What also comes back out of conference in K-12 is the work that Senator Kent has done on the Support Our Students. I think all of us have talked about the needs in our schools for counseling and social services. The dollar figure is not quite at the level of what was passed off the Senate floor, but it's still significant. In the Health and Human Services article, there was mention on the Senate floor of the request by the administration for dealing with what they termed to be the deficiencies in the sexual offender program, as well as the excuse me, some of the direct care and treatment. That figure was $43 million. Members might recall that in the passage of the Senate bill, we discussed the fact that there was an attempt to match what the administration had requested. We did not get to all of it. We only had, I think, Senator Laurie, $17 million that was in our original bill. This bill does contain the full $43 million as requested by the administration. A small success, a small lack of success. We had a much higher amount for the SCORE grants, something that Senator Scalzi has worked hard to recover that money, but at the very least we have some of it, and it continues then into the tail. So we'll have the chance, hopefully over the next several years, to finally reach that program at an equitable level. Obviously, Senator Marty, as Senator Scalzi, you retire with at least achieving some success with this program. Senator Marty is going to make sure that you achieve greater success. In the judiciary article, we come back with a lot of what Senator Latz had worked on. The employee compensation piece for the Department of Corrections, also a very key part of the governor's request, as well as the challenge incarceration piece that Senator Latz has put some very significant work into. In the economic development section of the bill, Senator Rosen, you talked about what had happened in Madelia, the fact that in the tax bill there was relief. Senator Tomassoni has provided some relief, for additional relief for the city of Madelia, which is contained in this bill. What comes back from conference, however, is some significant support for what's happened in the Mille Lacs area. And for all the talk about a special session in the fall and the need to provide some help for Mille Lacs earlier in the year, this bill does adopt the House language and the House dollars that provide for the Mille Lacs area. I mentioned the equity article. One of the things that obviously took place in the promulgation of this bill is the fact that when you provide a tax exemption, a tax credit, you don't do it on a one-time basis. You do it on a continuing basis. And because, although the pair-up was a little bit the governor's pre-K program, the other issue that was tied into this was the equity article. Members might recall that that was one-time money. And I should add that the Senate bill, the additional money beyond what the governor demanded with this as the principal exception, was one-time money. The equity article, however, continues as a pair-up with that veterans credit as money in the tails. So it's continuing money. And I think I said on the Senate floor earlier, relative to the equity article, that this was a very solid beginning to what has become a statewide problem with the racial and economic inequities in this state. This provides additional money on an ongoing basis. So I'm hoping that as we see the equity money proceed, we'll see the ability to deal with these significant issues. Something I should mention to members, there is a reduction in the broadband appropriation, as there was with the appropriations for everything. We still come back with $35 million, way beyond where the House was at $15 million. And the proportionate cut in general fund from where we were leaving the Senate floor to where we are now actually leaves broadband and equity with more money on a proportionate basis. Members, let me mention one other thing that's in the bill that I think will mean a lot to all of us. So this is a little bit tough. And I actually had trouble with this at, I think, 2 in the morning. The appropriation in the Senate bill for the Mighty Ducks program was $15 million. Coming out of conference, the figure is $10 million. But there was an amendment adopted, and I think Senator Saxog, it was about 2 o'clock, an amendment that I asked Council to prepare and was offered by Senator Saxog. So the Mighty Ducks program now is the James Metzen Mighty Ducks Ice Center Development Act. And from now on in the state, when kids are on rinks that were provided by this, they will be participating in hockey activities because of a Metzen grant, and that's in state statute. Jim was here for a short period of time earlier today. I know as I was walking down the hall with him that he stopped by the Republican caucus to say hello. We're hoping he's here tomorrow. He is aware of this. Last night we made sure that copies of the amendments, a number of copies of the amendments were taken to his office. I gave one to Jim earlier today. Sandy was aware of this, and I'm very pleased that we were able to do it. So members, that's what's in the supplemental finance bill. Would be happy to stand for questions. Obviously, if members have questions for some of the chairs directly, they're available as well.
Questions, Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, more comments than questions, I guess. It's getting late. And I'm stuck. Senate File 40 from last year is the military pension exemption, which many of us have fought for a number of years, and I think it's really, really good policy, and I'm very, very pleased it's in here. And the other thing that I think is really, really important that we're working on is the expansion of broadband into rural Minnesota of $35 million, but in particular, I know it had to be a compromise for some that we are exempting prevailing wage from the last mile of service. In many of the rural areas, it really has nothing to do with union work. It's just folks out there that have a wage, and some of the providers have said they could have gone 30% farther had we not had that in these, and so that's a compromise. But the point I want to really point out for concern of this bill is that we are raiding the Health Care Access Fund, and so we're actually spending more money than we really have and depleting that fund quicker than it needs to be depleted. And I think people need to be aware of that. When we're using those dollars, they're not going to last forever, and I think we could have done that in a more prudent manner.
More discussion. Are there any other questions? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to mention 2 particular items that are important, I think. One specifically to my community, which is the Zumbro Valley Behavioral Health Pilot Project, a very important mental health program in southeast Minnesota, and I'm very glad to see that it is funded in this bill. And I also would like to draw members' attention to Article 16, which deals with mental health issues for one, and the Excellence in Mental Health bill is included today. And I believe that is a way that we will be able to transform how we deliver health care, mental health services in this state, something that we have talked about. We all know the issue of untreated mental illness. And so I'm glad to see those provisions in tonight's bill. But I also want to mention something that I did not know about until tonight. I am so glad to see it in this bill. It's section 67. It's on page 267, lines 14 through 18. And it's the Legislative Council for Planning for Fiscal Policy study of joint budget target process timing. And so we stand here today because we have not been looking at a process like this. We stand here tonight with less than 90 minutes left, and we're waiting. We have this supplemental budget bill, and we're still waiting for the bonding bill. And many targets were not released even before Friday. And so I'm hopeful that this study, looking at what other states are doing, so we do not have to rush to last-minute lawmaking. I think this is a small, little 5-line provision that can help our state move beyond last-minute lawmaking. That is something that our citizens are demanding. My email, my social media has been flooded with people who cannot understand why we do things like we always do, which is waiting till the last minute. So I'm very glad for this provision. I think it will help us going forward.
Are there any more comments? Senator Westrom.
Madam President, members, I rise to echo Senator Guzalka's comments about broadband across rural Minnesota, especially in areas that are underserved or unserved. And so I rise to support that provision and talk about a couple of my communities that hopefully are able to be benefited under this round of funding. Community of Herman, Minnesota, many of you may be were familiar with it because of the bachelor mania that went on in the 90s. Too few women and too many men. But they are in dire need of improvements in their broadband opportunities. Some of the businesses there, we had a hearing and a meeting there last fall. I've heard about it for multiple years. They actually finally went together themselves and went to a local phone provider and paid most of the cost to bring in high-speed internet. The international dealer in that town literally had to do all their parts orders at 2 a.m. in the morning just to try to be able to get them submitted, and it would take hours to make those orders. And at some point, they were feeling the pressure from corporate offices to say, you've got to get better internet access so we can serve our customers better. That's just one of many examples of small businesses in small towns that need better broadband opportunities. These 50-50 grants can be a good private-public partnership to help make the business case for a community of Herman, Traverse County just to the west, one of the smallest counties in the state in population. Big town of Wheaton is the city or the county seat. They are in need. These two areas are areas that I hope those in the office can help us achieve. So communities like this and others in your districts can benefit from this $35 million, as well as try to draw down some federal funds. And I look for great things out of this for my communities and your communities that need broadband and need to catch up to the speed of the 21st century.
Senator Hayden.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of this bill. I will be brief because the hour is late. As Senator Cohen said, there was a very unique portion in the article of this bill around equity. Many of us have been hearing about and talking and have felt this issue about disparities in our communities. And I want to commend this legislature if this should move forward, and certainly Senator Cohen as well as Senator Champion and all those that served on the Equity Committee, as well as those in the House of Representatives. This is an important and historic step to start this path of making sure that those Minnesotans that are in, that aren't as doing as well as others, those that we have seen that are in deficit, those that are in the achievement gap, continue to move forward and get the support that they need so that they can participate in this robust economy. As many know that the demographer talked about Minnesota having one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation, but for African Americans, Latinos, and some Southeast Asian, including the Hmong community, we have some of the highest. We have some of the lowest poverty rates in the country, but for those populations, we have some of the highest. We as Minnesotans have found that that is not something, that's not a reputation that we like. We don't like to be compared to states that have been historically connected to poverty. I won't name them, but it is important. And so today we have found that the $35 million is a start. However, the $35 million that we have and what we call the tails, but in ongoing appropriations to help people on pathways to prosperity, to start their own businesses, to get job training, to if for some reason in high school they didn't have the experience that most of us have, that they now can get another chance to be able to graduate and to move on. I want to commend in a very bipartisan way the opportunity for us to do it, and I wanted to make note of the historic nature. Many of us know friends from all across the nation, and I have talked to others, and some of us have been receiving calls, and I told them a little bit prematurely about the work that we've done. So once again, Madam President, I want to commend Senator Cohen, the leadership in both houses, and in particular, my good friend and partner in the legislature, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, at moving the ball forward. This is for all Minnesotans, and we believe that that part of the bill, as well as all of the other great things, are something that we should be very proud of. Thank you again, Madam President.
Senator Rude.
Madam President, as a freshman senator in 2003, one of the very first bills that I ever carried was the military pay exemption. And so tonight that we finally, after all these years, are going to get this accomplished is really a wonderful thing. And so I called my brother, who is a retired lieutenant colonel in Alabama, and told him to come on home.
Senator Goodwin.
Madam President, will Senator Cohen or Senator Laurie yield? Doesn't matter.
Which one would you like? Senator
Laurie, maybe.
Senator Laurie, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Goodwin.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm wondering how, in overall mental health dollars came out from the bill that left the Senate, and I understand there were some pretty significant cuts. I want to know how many new beds we have and how many additional beds we have at Anoka and St. Peter, and in the residential treatment centers.
Senator Laurie.
Madam President, Senator Goodwin, we actually have an increased appropriation for mental health from where it was reported out of the Senate. So one of the key pieces, I'll start with the community-based side, and we do have, as some have mentioned, the Excellence in Mental Health Act, that community-based mental health clinic system that we really are hoping to be one of the 8 demonstration states to do that. But then also our direct care and treatment system, which is sort of the inpatient side for psychiatric care. We left, as Senator Cohen said, funding $17 million of a $28 million deficiency, and we additionally had $20 million for increased psychiatric beds within the direct care and treatment program, and an additional just shy of $10 million for additional staffing at Minnesota Security Hospital. What we wound up doing was increasing that $17 million to the entire $28 million deficiency for our MSOCs homes, those group homes serving some of our most vulnerable all across the state dispersed. We also picked up the operating adjustments at across the state-operated services and within the sex offender program, a total spend there of $15 million. And then we kept the just shy of $20 million in the columns for increased psychiatric capacity within the direct care and treatment system, intended to build a competency restoration program out in St. Peter, but outside of the security hospital in St. Peter. And for that, it was intended to free up 20 beds at Anoka and 12 beds in St. Peter, and then also, but that would go into the CBHH there in St. Peter, and then we also funded the staffing to bring the rest of the CBHHs dispersed throughout the state up to full capacity. I think there was about 12 beds that added to the system through that investment, but there was significant pushback in that. So the total spend there within the direct care and treatment portion then was about $63 million, whereas we left the Senate at a $50 million spend in that whole package. Now, for the additional psychiatric capacity within direct care and treatment, as we were working in conference committee, there was beginning to be expressed quite a significant concern about not having directly funded some of the additional staffing needs within the existing hospital at St. Peter, and we added in the instructions to staff in constructing the appropriations article language to say, to the extent that you need to use some of these funds to make sure that safe patient staffing is accomplished at the existing hospital in St. Peter or other facilities, some of that appropriation could be used there. So there is some additional flexibility for the department to use those funds. But that's how it's structured, and it is an additional $13 million from how it was reported out of the Senate floor.
Senator Goodwin.
Thank you, Madam President. And maybe you could tell me, because I couldn't add it all up. Maybe it's because of the hour. But how many beds, additional bed space, will we have total throughout the system?
Senator Laurie.
So, Madam President, Senator Goodwin, so that you don't have to add it up, we left with $50 million in the direct care and treatment. We came back with a $63 million spend. Now, $43 million of that is in the deficiency and the operating adjustments. $20 million is for that additional capacity within the direct care and treatment system. That is a new competency restoration program that is intended to free up 20 beds at Anoka and 12 beds at St. Peter Security Hospital, plus the staffing to bring the community-based, the community behavioral health hospitals, the CBHHs, dispersed around the state that are at current capacities. They're all 16-bed facilities, and they are running at between 8 and 10, I think, annual or average census, and we're trying to get the staffing up to be able to bring each of those to full capacity at 16 beds. So there's a number of additional beds brought on through that. But the caveat is that a portion of that $20 million for those reforms throughout the system may need to be used for some additional staffing within the St. Peter facility to ensure patient safety there and worker safety as well. So,
Senator Goodwin.
Madam President, I'm sorry, Senator Laurie, I still don't know how many additional beds will be available for people in the state. I mean, just a total with the St. Peter and Anoka and then the other SOCs, extra beds, total number of extra beds is what I'm looking for.
Senator Laurie.
Madam President, Senator Goodwin, a new competency restoration that is in St. Peter that is intended to take competency restoration patients currently served in Anoka and St. Peter to free up 20 beds in Anoka, 12 beds at the Security Hospital in St. Peter, and then so 32 beds is the intent there within that portion of direct care and treatment. And then in addition to that, building up the staffing in our CBHHs, 16-bed facilities, 16 licensed beds that have been running at a lower capacity for some time because of staffing needs. They don't have the staff to run at full capacity. I don't have an exact number how many more we're going to get out of that, but we are adding additional staff to increase the capacity, the staffing ability to serve more patients there. I think the number we're shooting for is another 12 beds there. So 20, 12, and 12 is 44.
44. Senator Goodwin.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Laurie. I know you've worked really hard on mental health issues, and I know how important they still are around the state, and all the complaints we get from people that cannot get their loved ones into a bed when it's needed. So I appreciate the number of beds that you have, and I hope that we keep working on that, and I hope that we continue to work on crisis services as well, because that's something that's still missing from the system, and it's money well spent, because if you're not using emergency rooms and you're not using police, you're not using jails and courtrooms and prisons, then you're spending a whole lot less money. And overall, it's a very cost-effective way and a fair way of treating people. So thank you for your work, Senator Laurie.
Senator Franson.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to rise in support of some of the provisions of this bill. In particular, I want to thank the committee for moving forward with Sophia's Law. It was a bill I carried in the Senate, which deals with carbon monoxide poisoning detectors on certain boats. I really want to thank the committee for making this provision part of your Supplemental Finance Conference Committee report. It's something that's a sensible change for boaters that's going to hopefully save lives in Minnesota and making sure that we have our safe water. So thankfully, that was part of the provisions that were included. I also want to thank the committee for including funding for Parent Aware, and this is the rating system for child care. And certainly there's some other provisions dealing with early childhood education, which I'm also thankful that are included here. However, I do want to stand and really, I'm saddened that the other PA that I worked on, prior authorization for medication, was not included. The Senate position was strong in making sure that we were putting patients first in medication access, and it's a convoluted, complicated issue, but simply put, it's making sure that patients have access to their medication on time. It's not a partisan issue. I'm still really frustrated with the House not taking up this issue, or at least having hearings on the issue, which is something very important for the health and well-being of all Minnesotans. And hopefully next session, new people will come in and really see this issue as what it is. It's something that we need to tackle to make sure that health care is accessible for all, and that we have cost containments as well for medications, not just denials of people when they need the medications they need for their chronic illnesses. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I just wanted to make those few comments.
Senator Abler.
Thank you, Madam President, and Senator Cohen. I commend you for keeping the bill under 600 pages, 599. Anyway, and I have a couple things I want to talk about. I'm not going to talk very long. I know we have other work to do, but there's a couple things that are worth talking about. I want to commend Commissioner Piper for her efforts at the Anoka Treatment Center, and jumping in as a new commissioner, trying to deal with St. Peter as well. And I want to thank Senator Laurie in particular for tending to the needs of that, and a number of other things about this bill. There's a lot of nice things to like about this bill. I expressed some concerns, this is my fourth commentary on this same topic, about where we are in our total spending and what's going to happen in next January after the elections are done and whoever's in charge and whoever's comes back. I don't know all the spending we will do. If the bonding bill ever gets done with some cash, we'll have in the range of $500 or $600 million left based upon current projections. Inflation, just so people know, is $1.7 billion. And in 2003, I don't think it'd be as bad as 2011, but in 2003 we were very tight. And some of the things that seem so important to us that went left off the floor, and even some things that are coming back here, will seem luxurious by comparison with the choices we'll have to make, and I'm just cautioning people about that. Madam President, I intend to vote for the bill because of some of the good features about it, but I want to express that concern to folks. And finally, I want to make a comment about the process. And I don't think any individual is to blame how it worked out, but when you combine 8 areas in a process like this, it was poor, Madam President. The amendments were not available to online. When they came out, there was a frenzy. This is what happens with these big kinds of projects, without exception. I think if you want to do one big bill, I'm not going to argue constitutionality or anything, but as a practical matter, there should have been 8 different groups with 8 sets of people who knew what they were talking about, and the openness of the topic of human services, agriculture, economic development. And so Senator Lurie would not have to come at 4 in the morning with his amendment that no one knows what's there. And there's some things that got lost along the way. There's some, and not just some policy provisions that were really good. And I think that the Senate worked really hard on some of the autism benefit language, which didn't make the cut because the House had some concern, which I think was ill-founded. And maybe if we could have been in a group together, they could have seen, oh, people agree with this. Testimony could have been had, and oh yes, it's all worked out. The controversy is gone. And so going forward, Madam President, I hope that we don't do it quite this way again. And if you look in that room, there's stacks of paper, and what's the real piece of paper? And I'll stop at that point, but I hope that as we improve ourselves and serve the people who are so eager about this and care what's going on, that we can improve this process, and whether it's one bill or many, I don't care. I guess I'll quit there, Madam President, but thank you to the conferees who put in so much time and effort. And Senator Cohen, your dedication to your work is commendable, and so thank you, Madam President.
Remaining under motions and resolutions, the Secretary will read the message from the House.
Madam President, I have the honor to announce that the House has adopted the recommendation and report of the Conference Committee on House File Number 2749 and repassed said bill in accordance with the report of the committee so adopted. House File Number 2749, a bill for an act relating to state government, conforming buyback level for the budget reserve with the most recent forecast. House File Number 2749 is herewith transmitted to the Senate, signed Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Senator Cohen.
Madam President.
Champion, too. Senator Cohen, make your motion.
I was about to do so. Would move that the foregoing recommendations in Conference Committee report on House File 2749 be now adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Conference Committee.
Then we'll continue with discussion on the motion to adopt the Conference Committee report. Senator Champion. I'm sorry, Senator Chamberlain. I'm so sorry, Senator Chamberlain. It's getting late.
Madam President, I'm going to refer to Senator Champion for a moment because he has a great comment for this. Senator Champion, would you please refer? You know, what Senator Champion likes to say is, we are brothers by a different mother. So the first time we got to that point this session so far, so that was very good. Thank you. Well, Madam President and members, I'm going to make a play on words here. Someone that was here earlier, but I'm going to spin the words a bit. In a sea of chaos and confusion, you will occasionally find an island of refuge. So this bill is that chaos and confusion. And we can all find refuge in that bill somewhere, and that's fine. So for me, there's a lot of reasons to vote against this bill, a lot of them. But let me say there's 135,000 reasons for Senator Chamberlain to vote against this bill. Those 135,000 reasons, 135,000 children estimated to have dyslexia in the state of Minnesota. And we have again, this year, ignored them. They have been ignored in the tax bill and in this bill. I go through this bill, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars for anything you could describe and think of, allocated and appropriated for people, and causes across this state. So when Senator Hayden says that this is a good bill for everybody in the state, I must disagree, Madam President. We have asked in tough discussions and committee hearings for $800,000 to get help to these kids, something that's measurable, correctable, and certainly quantifiable. And most members in this chamber, I know, agree, because they've talked to me and others and said, this is something we got to take care of. So not only do we not get that, we didn't get money for 2 people, but now we are left with language that says, please give us a report on how you're screening for these kids and what you're going to do about it. So members, I have 135,000 reasons to start with not to vote for this bill. I'm going to go and I'm going to tell the parents of decoding dyslexia in Minnesota that we'll have to wait another year, their kids will have to wait another year. So I'm going to vote no. I'll do it easily, I'll do it happily, I will do it for the 135,000 kids.
Senator Fischbach.
Madam Chair, there are some good things in this bill, and there are some things that not all of us like, but I will be supporting the bill, and I did sign the conference committee report. But most of all, I just wanted to thank Senator Cohen. When he originally even mentioned that I would be on a conference committee, I thought he was joking, and it ends up that I sat there quite a bit. But and it wasn't the most horrible thing I've ever done in my life. So, but so I just wanted to thank him for all of his hard work, thank his staff, and thank the other conferees, Senator Laurie, Senator Uyghur, and Senator Saxog, and of course, Senator Cohen's staff. But like I said, it wasn't the most horrible thing I've ever done. I do support the bill. It is less spending than left here, so that is something to remember, that when it left here, it was about, I believe, just over twice the size. I can't remember now. But there's less spending now than there was when it left. So please support the bill.
Is there any more discussion? Senator Herr.
Madam President, thank you. I rise to support this bill. I thank Senator Cohen for putting a lot of time, and also Nicole Kaplan for putting a lot of time. This must be a tough decision for both of them, whether it's in the next few days or probably throughout this whole session. There's one package in this bill that I was a little concerned that it could be just falling in the gap of our political fight between the House and the Senate, and then it get dissolved away, you know. But I'm glad that the equity package is included in this bill. It's not 100% to my original proposal, my asking, but you know it's gonna give us a good stretch for our economic development. And I see this package and the whole supplement budget bill as Minnesotans stand together. When we have tougher winter, we all stand together and put out funding to support folks that need energy assistance. And when we have shortage of walleye population, we put money there to support together. And when we have lake level that going down, we also come together as one Minnesota. So today, I'm glad that we all stand together. Just got confirmation message from the House, and we all stand together. And I want to applaud the leadership of Minnesota here, that we stand together for the equity solution. So, as a state senator, I want to say that we are doing the right thing, and I also want to speak on behalf of people that I represent, my constituents, because my network of people are not so much of those who make over $30,000. All the network I have are people who make below $30,000. There's only a handful of people that I know in my lifetime that make below that amount. And so I want to speak on behalf of them, say thank you, and we will do better with this appropriation. Thank you very much for the time.
Shh, let's keep the noise down. We're almost done. Is there any more discussion on the motion to adopt the conference committee report? Senator Nelson.
Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this again. We spoke on many issues, but there are one thing I just wanted to note. You know, this is 598 pages, and it does include just about every aspect of our state budget. And I think it's important for people to know that we're here tonight and we have one vote. We have one vote on all of this. And I believe that, as many have said, there's some things in here that are great, like we talked about, increased mental health services and military pension exemption, and trying to get to some better joint budget timing with those joint budget targets. But there are two things that haven't been said that I also think are important to like in this bill. One is the tuition payers' right to know bill. We are in a time of increasing student debt, and yet what we have found is many colleges across the state have different policies regarding how much dual credit they will accept. So you might imagine the shock of a student who has taken dual credits in the last 2 years of high school, gotten 2 years of college credit, only to find out that the college that they plan to go to in the state of Minnesota might only accept 6 of those credits. And that is what has happened in this state, and it is very costly to students and tuition payers across the state. I'm glad that a small provision of mine is in here, which will make sure that the Office of Higher Education puts on its website the dual credit policies for all of our state of Minnesota colleges and universities. I think I call it the tuition payers' right to know bill. It's a small provision, but it will save parents and students lots of tuition dollars, so I'm glad about that. There's one other initiative that's very important, and that is the Medal of Honor Memorial. And Madam President, you and I have worked on the CAP board as this was first brought to us. And I am very glad to see that the provision for the Medal of Honor Memorial is now included. We are going to have this national convention in our state this year. It won't be coming again for 50 years. And of course, this is the honoring of the highest level, the highest medal that is offered to military men and women in our country. And I believe we've only had about 7 winners in the state of Minnesota who have earned this high level. And so I'm glad to see that we will be honoring them on our Capitol grounds as well. And I must say there is one thing that does give me great heartburn in this massive bill, and that is the Health Care Access Fund. We should not be taking money from the Health Care Access Fund. And it is my hope that as we come back next year and in future years, we will cease and desist from that practice, and we will use the Health Care Access Fund for what it was intended for only. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, on the motion to adopt the conference committee report, Senator Cohen.
Madam President, just to play it safe, would move a call of the Senate.
Senate's under call. Senator Cohen.
Madam President, I move that further proceedings in the call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absentees.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Sergeant will bring in the absent members. On the motion to adopt the conference committee report, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. Motion prevails. The report is adopted. Is there any more discussion? The Secretary will give House File 2749 its third reading.
House File Number 2749, a bill for an act relating to state government, conforming buyback level for the budget reserve with the most recent forecast.
More discussion, Senator Cohen?
Madam President, just quickly, if nobody has anything else to say on the bill.
Senator Hand does.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Senator Hand.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sorry, Senator Cohen. I just wanted to make one very brief comment. Members and others who may be watching, we just passed a tax bill that had $190 million of tax relief. Always a good thing when we're doing tax relief in Minnesota. This bill has got $246 million of new spending for this biennium. And all I would say is that we have a $42 billion budget. It has grown by 18% in the last 4 years. I think these last two bills are indicative of what the problem we have here is. We are spending at a pace faster than what the economy can sustain. It's faster than the rate of growth of inflation, and we are not taking care of the needs of our people. So members, I know there's lots of good things in bills like this. It is so big, it has everything. When it left here, it had everything but the kitchen sink. When it came back, it had the kitchen sink in it. We added a tax provision to this bill. I don't know, Senator Cohen, how this passes constitutional muster, but it's a huge bill, and you're going to find good things in it. I think there'll be a lot of votes for it. But members, there's something wrong here. This is indicative of the problem we have, way too much spending and not enough tax relief.
Senator Cohen.
Madam President, members, just a couple of comments. I appreciate the thoughtful comments of both support and criticism relative to this bill. I think as a supplemental finance bill, it does quite a bit for the state of Minnesota in meeting the supplemental needs. In some cases, some very important needs. In some cases, needs that are important to the communities of the state, and I think it's a bill worth supporting. I do, in concluding, however, very quickly at this hour, want to thank the folks who are involved. In particular, I find it extremely gratifying, very gratifying, moving for Senator Fischbach to say this is not, serving on the conference committee was not the least horrible thing she has done in her life. And thank you, Senator Fischbach, for that. Someday you'll tell us what has been more horrible in your life than serving on the conference committee. So appreciate that. I also, Madam President, just want to briefly respond to Senator Nelson's comment in terms of the study of joint targets and budget setting. Representative Knobloch and I had a joint Finance and Ways and Means hearing approximately 3 to 4 weeks ago, where we had a couple of folks in from the National Conference of State Legislatures, and we wanted to continue the discussion. I don't know what will arise from it, but I'm happy to take a look at handling the budget and our financing process in a different way. Then, members, let me, if I might, just thank the folks who have worked on this bill. All of us know that without staff, we are nothing. I can tell you, particularly for those who are those of us who are finance and tax chairmen, we know that absent our fiscal analysts, not much gets done. So I want to thank everyone from Senate Council and Research. Obviously, with this supplemental finance bill, everybody participates, both the Senate Council, the fiscal analysts, and certainly the support staff. But in particular, I want to thank Eric Naumann, the chief fiscal analyst for the Minnesota Senate. I work closely with him, but I can tell you that his impact is felt throughout the Senate budget process. And I'm very lucky to have as counsel to the committee the head of Senate Council and Research, Mr. Tom Bodern, who, again, does a great job of serving all of us. Would thank my personal staff, Ms. Nicole Kaplan, and Mr. Josh Nye, my legislative assistant. Let me also offer thanks to Representative Knobloch. As I mentioned, I've worked with Representative Knobloch over the last X number of years. We've done a number of things together legislatively, and he was very good to work with. I want to thank the conferees. I've already had a chance to deeply thank Senator Fischbach. She continued to give me a hard time, even on the conference committee. I thought maybe once placed on the conference committee, she would not lapse into her behavior from the Senate Finance Committee. I was disappointed, but still happy to have her. My thanks also to Senator Saxog, Senator Laurie, and Senator Uyghur, members of the conference committee, the ad hoc members of the committee, Senator Champion and Senator Hayden, and obviously because it was also a supplemental finance bill, the other finance chairs who participated in very significant ways, Senator Marty, Senator Bonoff, in her swan song as a finance chairman, and Senator Tomasoni. Thank you to all of you, and thank you, members.
Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. All senators having voted, the secretary will close the roll. There being 50 ayes and 16 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.